Hey, Richard Beach here from Sonic's Day Amp, that's Sonic's guitar channel, and today I have a look at the Jim Dunlop Echoplex EP101 pedal. Bit of a mouthful, but this is designed to emulate the preamp sound of the famous Maestro Echoplex EP3, which was the first Echoplex unit to have a solid-state preamp. There's no echo or sort of tape delay emulation on this pedal. It is just designed to emulate the sound of the preamp, not any of the tape echo, and it's basically a cut and boost pedal that can go on your signal chain. What I want to do is A/B it with the EP3 and see how it matches up. So we're going to do that. I'll also bring in a TC Electronic Flashback ×4 on the tape setting in conjunction with the Echoplex pedal and just see if I can get the two to work together to get a similar sound to the EP3 with tape kicked in. Okay, so you might be able to hear the rain in the background. You'll probably notice we're not in our usual Sonic State studio surroundings, actually in Portishead member Adrian Utley's studio, and we've got a bit of a sort of, I don't know how you would describe this roof, but we can definitely hear the rain. If you can hear it at home as well, don't worry about it. We have got the Vox Bruno amp that we're using close mic, so you shouldn't be picking up any of the rain sound when we're actually A/Bing the two products. Okay, so first things first, my actual rig, aside from all the other stuff that I've talked about, I'm just using an Orville by Gibson Les Paul Standard, and that is going into a Vox Bruno 18-watt amplifier, just a clean sound at the moment. I'll show you what my dry signal is. Okay, so I will get some more drive out of that because I think this pedal is going to work really well with distortion sounds, and there's also reverb on board the Vox Bruno, so I'll try and use a bit of that as well, and it's just a really beautiful sound, so we might as well make the most of that. In terms of what we're miking it up with, it is our usual SE Electronics Voodoo VR1 ribbon microphone used for all our reviews at Sonic HQ. So what I've had to do with the Echoplex pedal is match it up to the same volume as the EP3, because otherwise I think the comparison is fairly worthless. That volume is actually lower than the volume we're getting from the amp. So here's our dry signal again. And then if I bring the pedal in, so you can hear it's taking a bit of the bottom end out, probably has a bit more presence in the mid. You can certainly hear some of those harmonic overtones in the high mid range coming through when the pedal's clicked in. Has a nice quality to it, but how does it compare to the EP3? Okay, and let's now, using the magic of editing, cut those two sounds together side by side. Right, so in terms of what we've got on the front panel of the pedal, really not very much, just one knob that goes from 1 to 9, which is gain. Basically anything below 5 will be cut, and anything above 5 will be boost up to 11 dB. And that's pretty much it. An on-off switch and a bluish LED, and just the word Echoplex written on it, an input and an output, and then 9-volt power supply right there. So how this differs to the actual EP3 unit is that you don't actually have the option to increase the gain on the Echoplex EP3. So as you can see, with the only option we have for volume on the front panel here is the echo volume. It doesn't actually make the signal any louder. Okay, and as if by magic, Ade, who is very kindly hosting us today and who owns this Echoplex unit, is right here. So I guess the first question would be, why would somebody want to own a pedal that mimics the preamp sound of the EP3?
What you said about Echoplex earlier was that you can't change the gain.
Yeah.
And for guitar players, I mean, they're really good with synths as well, but for guitar players, that was the coolest thing. If you get a copycat, which are great, or a space echo, you can adjust the volume, and then that gives you another whole world of what are you doing with your gain structure.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, you plug it in and you get what you get. You can change the echo volume, and that has always appealed to me, really. And it changes the sound in a nice kind of way, whether it's on or off the echo.
So what we agreed, I guess, earlier on was that we think this is maybe trying to mimic the sound of maybe a special run or a special batch of the EP3s that had a different preamp circuit.
I think so, yeah, yeah. And if we put these together and they sound entirely different. This one came from later. This is later, EP4, EP3. That one to me sounds better. You could get another EP3 and it'll sound totally different to that. So. That's the kind of inconsistency of old equipment, isn't it? And you find something you really like and you use it always and it has a sound, it makes your sound. I think that this is giving you something of that kind of voodoo-y thing that you get from a special Echoplex. It's just, if it's a cool sound, it'll give you that, I think. Because this is another thing that I think about old tape echoes, and for me, I wouldn't use it live. I have, Is
that because of the unreliability?
Yeah, that's why I have two, because in case one went wrong, which it will, I use it on all sessions I do for people, if I play, or any recording I do in my studio, and small live gigs I use it, but any big gigs where you can't have your gear breaking down, I don't use it, because it's just too treacherous. And actually, I've A-B'd some of the pedals that I use with that, or with that. And
you're using is it the Strymon?
I'm using now a Strymon, yeah. And I used Line 6, one of the green things. I'll probably use that for 10 or more, 15 years, whenever they first came out. And I set it up very like my Echoplex and like my little Boss analog delay as well, red, whatever they're called. And I can't really tell the difference in the full force of noise going on, you know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but you can. I think you can on a recording. Also, it makes you feel very different. Well,
this is that age-old thing, isn't it? About, you know, you can emulate the sound of something, but you can't emulate the way it feels when you're playing.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And how much does that affect the way you're playing?
Massively, I think. The Strymon does that. Strymon, whatever it is, does that tape wobble thing, which Echoplex, because they're unstable, the motor or the tape, it gives you a very slight chorusy sound, really, doesn't it? Because the pitch is ever so slightly wobbling, which is really cool. And that's a kind of, that glues everything together. And that's, but that's the echo sound. Yeah, it's important for me that, especially on recordings, you know, because you can really hear it.
Okay, so we're in different positions. We've got a pair of matching guitars and we're going to A-B between the two of us, aren't we? So first of all, can you tell me a bit about the guitars, because they are gorgeous?
Yeah. Well, they're both 60s Fender Jazzmasters. That one's a 66, I think, and this one's 62, I think. And yeah, they're my main guitars. That's what I use.
Beautiful. Well, let's start off with you, I think.
Well, yeah, we've got set up them. They're kind of, the echoes are the same, and that's kind of the same, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. So yeah, we think we've got the same volume levels, the same delay time.
I mean, I don't think. And that in yours? Yeah, they're pretty similar, aren't they? So
it sounds remarkably similar.
Yeah.
I guess the difference is that I can go louder. So
yeah.
And that's going to change the behaviour of my delay a little bit as well.
Because that's before the delay, isn't it? I'd be quite tempted to do that, actually put it on full tilt.
All right, let's go for it.
Because that's more gainy now than this. That's much thinner sound, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder what happens, how does that sound like if we just crank the, let's get a bit more volume on the amp.
Well,
The decay of that, though, I still love. I don't think you can replicate that.
yeah, the reason I do like them, and what I was saying earlier about them being in the studio and stuff, live, I think is a whole different world. Unless it's a very intimate gig, which I would definitely use a tape echo. I think tape, it does all those things that the emulators do. There's the tape wobble, the wow and flutter. The tape in this is, I mean, God knows how old it is. It's really old. It's like an original sort of 70s tape in there. It's not being particularly noisy today. I don't know why, but
No, it's very well behaved.
it is. Yeah, I think it's the tail of the note when it's the way it degrades and drops out. Sometimes there's a join on the tape. You go past the join on the tape, and the note will drop out. You know,
Right.
which I think is very, very characteristic of that sound. You know, and it's warmer. I mean, I think things can be emulated incredibly well now, and we're at that point with synths and with pedals and all sorts of stuff where it can be really simulated very well. But there's something about your spirit with tape and what it does, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like the pairing of the flashback and the Echoplex pedal sounds too polished and too nice. In a different, you know, obviously that sounds beautiful. This almost sounds like a photoshopped model, you know.
Yeah.
It's almost too pleasing.
I think it's good though. I mean, it's a great sound. I definitely use that, you know. I mean, you know, it's definitely up there, isn't it, with the sound of this thing. I mean, this one's not can that be cleaner again? Though?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's doing weird stuff, isn't it? I mean, these are very immediate. So you got that kind of, and then really slow. This tape's incredibly old, I think. And you could just trip out for hours. Go on forever.
Yeah.
That's got sound on sound. I don't quite know how that works really. Which is what Brian May used to use, I think. You know, and it's very immediately you can change the speed really. Which Jimmy Page used to do that, didn't he, with his theremin?
Yeah.
That one's actually better for doing this bit.
So, well, there we go then. There's a comparison between the two. They sound. I guess the conclusion we've come to is they sound remarkably similar. Yet, there's just something about the EP3, something about the soul of it, something about using tape, which is just, you know, unmatchable when it comes to, you know, trying to emulate it in a tiny little stomp box, I guess.
Yeah, I think so, because you could sit this in front of you, which I often do in the studio, and just you've got a foot switch on it. You can switch it on and off. oh, that was weird. And you know, you can actually take the top off and mess about with the tape inside, so that it's, you know, you're doing. There's lots you can do with it, you know.
So I get the question is then, would you take that and like a Strymon pedal or perhaps the Flashback on the road as a sort of worthy replication of that? If you're just, you know, if it's not a tool for composition, if you're taking it to actually play something where you know what the settings are.
I probably would if I liked the sound of this enough,
okay,
with my usual rig that I use, and have it cranked up. Because I think that these things, you know, that whole thing about feedback and having things feeding back and the stuff all balanced and echoes going off and stuff is very much part of using your own equipment. And I think that would be, once everything's cranked and you hit that, you'd get a bit more nice stuff, I think.
Yeah.
I could well do. I mean, I don't know it very well, so.
Right, I'm going to crank this then. I'm also going to get a bit more, I'm going to get a dirtier sound on the amp. Yeah, it's just that 11 dB, isn't it? Just enough to change the behaviour of your amp, I guess, if you're really cranking it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this stuff doesn't really come in into, well, in my experience anyway, a lot of this stuff doesn't really start happening until you've got it really cranked. And I don't mean, you know, 200 watt Marshall, but your amp is driving and you've got other pedals. It's the interaction of this with other pedals would be interesting as well, because that's the thing about guitar pedals, is you find ones that work together with each other, because some of them can just crap the other one out completely. You have a distortion into a fuzz and it will just destroy the fuzz and it just take you down rather than up. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we're at a fairly natural roundup then. Hopefully that was a decent comprehensive look at the pedal, which this is the first one in the UK at the moment, but it will be retailing for about $170 in the US. Not 100% sure on the UK retail price at the moment if you are here. Probably upwards of, well, I imagine £150-ish, taking the sort of conversion rate and then the usual UK tax that's put on top of all the products that we seem to get over here. But I don't know, I think, you know, considering it's a one-trick pony, you might think that $170 is a lot, but, you know, it is like you were saying, it's how you pair it up with other pedals and how it reacts with what you're using in your rig. So, I don't know, I like it, and it sounded, to my ears, quite similar to the Echoplex as well. So, yeah, I guess all that's left to say is thanks for hosting us.
That's
and,
pleasure.
Being surrounded by beautiful gear. And thanks to everyone at home who's watched this. As always, more guitar news, videos, reviews and features at sonicstate.com/amped. And check us out on Facebook and Twitter as well, which is just Sonic Amped.